advanced or proficient or basic or minimal, but as long as we're growing students, and that's what we all want. We want students to leave the classroom much further than when they came into the classroom. And you should expect that for any student. Now, if a teacher is not growing her students, if she's not providing the type of instruction that student is the same place that he started school with, then there's a problem there that we need to address. And so MSTAR is really about showing growth with students. They should make a year's worth of growth during a school year, and there's a portion of their evaluation that's tied to growth. But that has nothing to do with Common Core per se. The assessment that they're going to be given is going to show and give us those determinations whether or not that student has met growth or not.
I'm going to do one that's from a math area. It says CCSS, that's the Common Core State Standards, only requires educating students to the level of Algebra 2, level for college readiness. What level will OS require for a high school diploma? Our requirements will not change at the State Department at this time, at the state level, and neither will they for Ocean Springs. We have very high standards, and the standards will be the same. As a matter of fact, Common Core will raise the bar as far as what will be tested in high school. If you're aware, at this point, the state administers a state test in Algebra 1, and while students have to take other math courses, that's the last time that they are tested at the state level, and that will no longer be true. They will be tested in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. And I'd just like to share, kind of on a side note, one thing that I think the State Department has done that's really smart, and that is they're creating a course that students can take after that as seniors, and that will be kind of a review of those things so that when they get to college, those things are real fresh. Because if you're, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but a lot of students, when they go to college or junior college, either one, they have to do a lot of remediation in math at this point. And so the State Department is creating a course that should make that less likely for your child when they get to college. And I think, and that has nothing to do with Common Core. That's just something smart that they've said, hey, that's a really good idea for our kids, let's do that.
Will parents be allowed to see the textbooks, literature books that our children will be using? And the answer is absolutely. If you have a question or want to see anything related to the textbook, that is simple as going to your child's school, talking with the principal, talking with the teacher. They'd be more than happy to share that information with you. A lot of this information goes home in newsletters that you should receive weekly. But you may go to the school or contact the administrator to ask about any textbooks that are being used.
One of the exceptions that I have granddaughter is in the Ocean Springs School District, and even though I do have 2 years of college, my husband's a college graduate, when they come home with homework and there's absolutely no explanation and no textbook, and they're not allowed to bring the textbook home. If they don't understand it and we don't have access to a textbook to help them understand it, why can't they bring the textbooks home?
If I can address that one. In a lot of instances, especially right now where we are with our transition to curriculum, the textbook, I'll just take Algebra 1, 8th grade. I'll use that as an example. We only have classroom sets of textbooks, but actually textbooks won't necessarily help with the curriculum that our children are being provided, because we have not made the transition in all instances to buy new textbooks yet. We have not done that, and there are a couple of reasons, and I don't shy away from this one. Number one, we're waiting to make sure that we know what the standards actually are. For us to go out and spend considerable money investing in new textbooks right now, with us being in this transition, would not be what you want us to do with your taxpayers' money. So we are waiting. But in the meantime, we have been very explicit with our teachers not to send homework home that students are not able to do by themselves. So if that is an issue that you're experiencing at home, then we need to have a conversation with your child's teacher, because homework is to be an extension of what the child has done in class as practice. We've had some issues. Accelerated math is a really good example, and there's some people in the room who are winking at me, because accelerated math is something that should be used as an extension or remediation, but it should not be something that's graded for a grade if the child has not actually been taught the content. So while we're going through this transition, we're trying to make sure that we're providing the best resources, but also that we're being very feasible with our dollars, because I want to be money is an issue for everyone, but it is a big issue here in Ocean Springs, and we're trying to make sure we're being feasible with our resources. So if you're having problems with homework at home, then please talk to us so that we can help you with that. I want to.
I understand that. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Not spending money on books if you're not sure which one you're going to get yet. My next question is going to be, when the school district decides to start purchasing these new textbooks, can or will there be a parent review board that has the right and the opportunity to read these textbooks, review them, and have input and help decide which books are or are not appropriate for the students?
Well, in that particular instance, I want to let you know that we have parents on almost every committee. We have parents that are helping us set our calendars. We have parents on everything. But in some instances, in textbook and instructional material, be one of them, we have to depend on the expertise of our teachers. Because it's important that they're the people who will be using these, that the teachers in the audience know where I'm coming from. They're the people who will actually have to use this resource. And so while it may look appropriate to me as Shannon's mom, I need to make sure that his U.S. government teacher thinks that it is the appropriate text for her class. I want to go to the next question, and we'll say and talk more after the session. Do Common Core standards affect AP or IB courses? Great question, because at the high school level, you know that we actually have enrolled more AP students this year than ever. We've gone from 80 AP kids last year to over 400 this year. And also IB is at an all-time high as well. So no, this does not impact directly those AP courses or those IB courses, because one of the things we've made sure to do here in Ocean Springs is to break down some of the barriers that our children were having getting into those classes. There were some prerequisites that were not necessarily College Board AP or IB prerequisites, and we have made sure that we remove those so that kids can have the opportunity to be successful, but more importantly for you as parents to graduate from high school with college credit. Because if we can send children out of the door with 3, 4, or 5 on an AP or an IB exam, that means that they don't have to take that class in college. That is money saved to you as parents. So no, this does not actually impact those classes. We're offering more AP classes than we've ever had. We're graduating more IB kids and more AP scholars than we've ever had before.
Very good. I'd like to address this question, and I know a couple of questions have come across. Has the complete list of literature been reviewed by the OSSD curriculum department? What will be done to protect our children from the extremely graphic sexual content of books? And there are some that are named here. One of them is The Bluest Eyes. The other one, The Cuban Dreamer, Freakonomics, or some other things that are stated here about promoting abortion. Please be aware that with Common Core, there are appendices that are before us as well. There are suggested reading lists on there, okay? Have your teachers in this school district ever put before your children something that you have felt was inappropriate in nature? And if they did you take that before the school? There are going to be pieces of literature, and I'm just curious to know, you as parents, especially when they get to the high school level, has there always been a complete list of literature and every book that's in the library and what your children select to read? I think the controversy is coming because of, and I've heard a lot of it, I've read about The Bluest Eyes. I've never read the book. I would never choose to let my students read that book, no matter what grade I was teaching. Now, do we have students that are selecting some of this reading material? I was seeing books that children were bringing from home in 5th grade and asking them, are your parents aware that you are reading this? Because of the controversial material. It's not something that we used in instruction. It's not something that I approved of. But please be aware that we work in a district with teachers that make decisions based on the best interest of your children every day. And if something is a suggested reading and it's not appropriate, it's not going to be in your child's classroom.
And I do want to talk about appropriate response today, because it just happened last week. I was at lunch with Reverend Mike and his wife, and he brought to my attention at lunch that there was a parishioner of his who was concerned about a film that we were going to be showing at the upper elementary. And keep in mind, we showed this film when upper elementary was at Tacony, so you know that's been 3 years ago. I instantly took out my phone, text Dr. Williams, text the principal snatch it today, and we did that. So it is incumbent upon you as parents, and I have other parents in the room who will tell you, if you are not comfortable with a text, and you can still control this in K-12 to a certain extent. When they get to college, you can't. But if you're not comfortable, let us know, and we can give you or your child an alternate assignment. But it's incumbent upon you to let us know, because there are certain instances, especially with Faulkner. I'll use as a good example, because I majored in Faulkner when I was at Ole Miss, Senator Watson. There are always going to be some text with information that not all of us are comfortable with, but we can have alternate assignments. But don't sit back, not say anything, and just fuss. Give us the opportunity to be responsive. And that's what we're asking for.
I just had a comment on what you said. Last year in the 4th grade, there was a couple of classes that were exposed to a sexual education video
Yes,
without the parents being acknowledged on it.
Yes,
And it went through half of the school. So you know, in one area, you want us to trust you and know that you're gonna, but it has failed. So what kind of system do you have so that that won't happen, especially when it comes to sexual education and especially the new situation with the upper elementary where you have 4th, 5th, and 6th grade?
Great question. And you're exactly right. There was an instance last year at the upper elementary, and that was in our abstinence plus. That was actually, but it was in a health class. It wasn't actually the sex education classes, if I recall correctly.
It was the 4th grade health class.
Okay,
And it was,
I remember.
it was boys and girls together. It was very inappropriate. And when it was brought up, nobody even knew that it was being shown. The principal hadn't seen it. No one had viewed it, and it was shown to half of the 4th grade.
Yes, ma'am. And it's still, and my board president is here, who I think's child was actually in that grade as well. As soon as it came to our attention, we shut it down. And I want to be clear. Teachers are human. They make mistakes. I mean, all of us are. There's not a person in here who works who had made a mistake on their job. And we hope that those are learning experiences, and we've handled that issue in the most appropriate manner. But that's why lesson plans are so important. That's why we hold the administrators responsible for reviewing those lesson plans. And so I'm trying to answer another question here that talked about if the curriculum is open, how do we make sure that there's no inappropriate content? And that's up to principals to make sure that as they're reviewing those lesson plans, they're also reviewing the resources to make sure they're appropriate. But you're right, and what I will tell you is that when we make a mistake, we are the first ones to tell you we're sorry we made a mistake. We're going to send a letter home, tell you, and actually tell parents what happened. We don't hide behind our mistakes.
Right, but it seems to me with Common Core, that's going to be, more thrown at the children than it has been previous.
What will be
The content of sexual education, inappropriate material, that type of thing, it's going to be flooding the system. So what kind of...
Well, can I ask you why you think that? I guess I'm just always concerned as a parent, why is that an assumption?
You hear it all the time, just like you guys
We hear it from where?
everywhere in the news.
The radio, everywhere.
Well, and I will say this, the internet, in a lot of instances, is probably one of our own worst enemies, because it is actually proliferated now with a lot of things that are not true. Trust, and if I just say, don't trust me. Trust that the process will work, that you can communicate with your teacher and your principal. And if you are monitoring your child's work and you see something that you are not comfortable with, that is the time to put the flag on the play. It
And I
really
think
is.
that's where a lot of...
Yes, ma'am.
I went to the Common Core meeting that was held in Biloxi by the State Department of
Yes, ma'am.
Education. And there was a parent there from North Bay Elementary in Biloxi, good grade. And her concern was her child was being taught gay rights that very week in school.
In North Bay. I mean,
North Bay Elementary. Not Ocean Springs. But this is what this parent is concerned about, these types of things, that we can't be, as parents, we are not in the classroom, we can't be there at the forefront of these and introduce. We can
would like one of the principals to address it, how they actually monitor that, we're open to them doing that as
Well,
well.
after the meeting in Biloxi, I immediately went to my school and spoke with my fifth graders, teachers, to make sure that that was not in the plans anytime soon, and they assured me that they were not. And the vice principal didn't come in, and I spoke with her about that. So that's just one of the things that
Actually, that, I mean, even, you know, teaching for all the years that I taught, that kind of thing, it's not important.
Well,
You know, a teacher could say something or introduce something or whatever that somebody may find offensive. You know what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily Common Core, it's just life.
well, this parent was told as part of the Common Core that the human rights curriculum and part of the human rights should teaching gay rights. So I did go home and read through the standards, and I could not find anything about the human rights component, but apparently this teacher interpreted it.
We're gonna answer the written questions as much as we can, so I'm okay.
This question goes right along with what we said, will all informational text be fact-based and information able to be proven as opposed to controversial and political in nature? Everything that I've read that has been put out by Common Core as parts of the assessment, the readings that I have looked at, I don't see them to be, we're not pushing, we don't have a political agenda in the classroom. And I know that what might be controversial to one person might not be to another, but we know what we stand for here in Ocean Springs. We're not teaching gay rights. We're not teaching, you know, there are things that should be taught at home, and that is where that should stay. We are not teaching that in Ocean Springs, and it is not in our curriculum.
I need to answer the senator's question, or I'll get in trouble. So I want him, he has a couple, but I'm gonna try and get through some of them. One of them is why have so many states withdrawn from PARC? And I'm not exactly sure of the number, but at the same time, I don't know what their individual concerns are, because of course Ocean Springs School District doesn't make a decision about whether or not we are involved in PARC, which is the assessment system. But I will tell you, and there's some teachers here who will tell you this, that where we can show flexibility, we have. We were chosen to participate in PARC in the 3rd grade at Magnolia, and in the upper elementary for math in the grades 4, 5, and 6. We went to our teachers and said, we're concerned because this feels like and it looks like a lot of testing if we participate in the pilot of PARC, and we still have to do MCT 2. Our 3rd grade building said, we don't want to do it. We absolutely respected their opinion. I withdrew us from the 3rd grade building. Our upper elementary decided that they did want to go ahead and do it because they wanted to test our technology capacity, but also they wanted to make sure that as we move toward PARC, that they had real first-hand experience. So we gave our teachers the opportunity to give us feedback, and we do that on every single decision. I know not all districts operate that way. I'm aware of that, but this is OS. This is how it's actually done here.
I have a couple, I don't know, oh, there we go. I have a couple more questions that are math related, and I would like to say that as far as I am aware, and this I looked pretty recently, there's still 45 states that have not backed out of Common Core. So you can do the math on that and see how many of them backed out. Are there others that are looking at things? Are there others that are considering options? Yes, but we can't talk about what might happen in the future. We don't know that. That we can only address what is true today. One of the questions was, were you aware that mathematics professor James Milgram of Stanford, the only mathematician on the validation committee, concluded that the mathematics standards would put students 2 years behind those of many high-achieving countries? Did you see the questions up there? Did you think that those were asking more difficult and more deeply, asking for deeper understanding? The questions that we saw. It may put us behind, but we're going to be way less behind. That could happen, but I think this is a really good step. Do we need to possibly change that in the future once we can achieve what we're going to do with Common Core, or whatever takes us to a higher level? That's a possibility, but I think that we see some positive things there. I just want to go ahead and answer the ones that are written down just just so I can answer these and the people that did that can get their questions answered. Another one says, if Common Core does not infringe on state and local control, can you explain the existence of the Mathematics Assessment Project? If local schools write the curriculum, why does MAP create and distribute classroom challenges? I've been teaching for many, many years, long before there was the internet. That's really sad, I know, but there have always been companies that have created similar projects and similar challenges. I used to have something that I got from Math Counts that was the problem of the week. That didn't mean that they were trying to sell anything to students or change the way students thought. The Mathematics Assessment Project is not something that anybody has to use. It's just a tool, and there are many fine tools out there, and there's some good things about that one as well.
That was my question, and if I could, real quick. That Mathematics Assessment Project, that is basically out of the University of Nottingham, England. And basically they've come together in a group with money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And they basically says, what is the Mathematics Assessment Project? The Mathematics Assessment Project aims to bring life to the Common Core state standards that will help teachers and their students with aspirations for achieving blah, 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 blah. But basically, it says this is a British school that is coming up with what they call classroom challenges and assessments to ship over to the United States. This gets back into your making kids to compete globally. And I'm having a very hard time really even getting into some of this with process and with the classes when I haven't even gotten past the threshold of honesty about where this information came from. And if you will just indulge me for just a second, I'm really going to make a point. In an Education Week published in July 1st, 2009, expert panels named in Common Standards Push. And basically, it was a list of 29 people who are deciding what math and language arts skills students will need to know when, along with 35 people who will formally critique the group's work, the validation committee. The list of those who will write the standards is dominated by 3 organizations: the Washington-based Achieve Inc., which works on college and career readiness, the New York City-based College Board, which administers the SAT, and ACT Inc., the Iowa City, Iowa-based organization that administers the college entrance test of that name. There was a quote that was by the guy who made tinfoil. He said if he could just sell one roll of tinfoil to every household in China, just one per year, he'd have to build 50 factories. So basically, you have the people who are creating the tests, who are creating the standards, and Microsoft with Bill and Melinda Gates, who are going to be doing your click and drag questions when everybody goes to the computer to do all their testing. So basically, this is, and what they're doing is with this thing going in England and getting everybody on a global standard, and they're starting with the States first, get everybody global. You have 2 glasses of water. One is full, one's a quarter full. And you equal those out. You get the one that was highest comes down. Basically, that would be the United States. They're leveling the playing field with your child's education so they can be competitive on a global market. Period.
I've been an educator for 30 years, and I am telling you, I don't know everybody's motivation. I don't know what they're thinking and what their plan was. I don't know. It doesn't make any difference as far as I'm concerned. I can't prove that. I can't look inside there. I can't mind meld. I can't do any of those things. But I can tell you that I know math. And this is not easy math, and this is not unimportant math, and this is not frivolous math. This is significant, deep thinking math. And I don't know, do I think Common Core is perfect? Of course not. It's made by human beings. How could it be perfect? But do I see some very great value in what they're asking students to understand? The answer is definitely yes.
And I'll take this question here. Someone asked, where could we get a copy of the Common Core standards? I think it's commoncore.org, if I'm not mistaken, commoncore.org. And again, we're not here to sell Common Core to you guys. This is the hand that we've been dealt, and we as Ocean Springs, we're going to play that hand to the best of our ability. Regardless of what standards they tell us that, hey, this is what you're going to do, hey, we're going to do it. We're going to do it to the best of our ability. When we had Mississippi curriculum frameworks, I'm sure some of you could have been very fired up about those standards that we had. And we didn't hear a lot of concern about the Mississippi you want to, some of you research people, if you want to look at the Fordham Institute report, they do a grading scale for each state standards. They give them a rating of A through an F. Mississippi, according to the standards that we had, Mississippi scored a D in language arts and a C minus in math, according to the standards that we had. Now, in my household that I grew up in, I could not bring a C or a D home. And I know that you probably have those same standards for your child. You don't want to bring it. If that's your best, that's fine. But again, we knew that something had to change. Whatever that change is, I can assure you that the Ocean Springs School District is going to be up for that challenge, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that your babies are given a quality education.
I know it's 8 o'clock, which I know for 7:30. If you want to continue, Dr. Potter, it's fine. I just wanted to remind us of the task and of the why we're here is to talk about why Ocean Springs, how they're planning to implement what they've been given by law. Let me just say, there's a lot of interesting conversation around this. I feel certain that there will be many, many more forums to discuss Common Core and its worth or not. Senator Watson and I have already had conversation about there being a need to follow up. You have information on your car already that is not sponsored by St. Paul or the school system. I know there are issues. What we invited the school district to do tonight is to talk about the state law, what's been mandated, how they're doing that in this school system. I appreciate all the questions and all the wonderful research you've done and information, and there is a wonderful place for that. Senator Watson wants to hear you before he leaves. But the school district is kind of limited in what they're able to do in fighting that at this moment. So if there are other questions that you want to respond to as it concerns them, then I'll be glad for you to do that. I just wanted to be sure we remember not to attack the school system because of something that they really had no control over writing or doing, okay? That, in love, that's what I want to do as a pastor.
And guys, we're not shying away from anything. This is the reason we're here, to address it, to hear you, and to give you that opportunity. And I don't know many school districts that are doing this type of work to educate their community on what they're doing because of the backlash that they don't want to face. We're facing this, we're coming both feet forward, moving forward with whatever they give us. But for those questions that weren't answered, we're going to put all of these together in a question and answer form, and we're going to post them on our website. We can also email them to the clergy here to get out to its members, just in case your questions weren't answered. And we will definitely answer every question that was submitted to us today. Once we finish, just on a personal level, about that process.
What was the question?
That is in reference to accelerated math. Students were being graded on accelerated math, and accelerated math is a program that students will take an assessment, and it will give that student a grade level in which they're performing on. So if I'm a 4th grader, I may be performing on a 7th grade level. And so the materials that I am being assessed on is on a 7th grade level. My 4th grade teacher is not teaching 7th grade material. So is it fair to penalize me for maybe failing an assessment that's on a 7th grade level when I'm in the 4th grade? And so we don't think it's fair to give grades on materials that the teacher didn't teach. And so that's the reason why we pull the plug on that practice that was being done, because it's not fair for you to, if the teacher didn't directly teach that material, we shouldn't be assessing it to take grades for it. And I think that's just fair not to do.
But that didn't have anything to do with Common Core.
No, that's not Common Core or anything of that nature. That's just a practice.
To meet with the school district, so people ask questions
Sure.
that concern
Understandable.
the kids.
Sure.
Speaking about ACT prep and SAT prep, unless the tests have changed since I took it, which is many moons ago, isn't it still multiple choice? I mean, are we still teaching our children the way to obtain the best answer on those type tests?
Test taking strategies, absolutely.
Because the Common Core test is not
But
necessarily
there are
doing that.
still multiple choice questions. It's just that there is the additional piece on several of them.
Yeah, instead of me just choosing B, I have to go and justify why I chose B from what I just read. And that just gives students a second step to ensure that this is the actual right answer, or the best answer based on what I've just read. So.
Isn't all of that testing changing anyway come the first of the year? It's my understanding, for example, I am the librarian in Vancouver, that the GED is changing, that you know, a lot of those skills that are being taught in Common Core are being incorporated into the GED and into the ACT and the SAT beginning this next year.
Yeah, and tests have changed, you know, over the years. You know, the PARC assessment in 5 years, who knows what we may be taking? I don't know. But that's what's in front of us now, and we as a district, we are committed to making sure that we are able to perform those things, our duties to the best of our ability. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any discussion in the lower levels about changing the grading system? There are some states that have actually moved away from letter grades and moved back towards the, 3 is completely proficient, 2 is meet standards. Because I've actually had a teacher say to me that kids aren't going to get A's anymore under Common Core.
Yeah, we're having some conversation in our district about grading, mostly in kindergarten. What it looks like for a student. You have standards-based learning, which, do I know the letter A? Yes. Okay, you get a plus for knowing the letter A. Versus, how many of the letters do I know and recognize? So I know 78% of the alphabet. So we're trying to look at a way to look at a grading system of not A's or B's or anything of that nature, just something more consistent across the board in reference to kindergarten in particular.
So, I can appreciate the questions that you're doing that, creating a more critical way of thinking, and that's the way a lot of college exams are now, or med school exams, or so on and so forth. But what I'm concerned about is my little one in 2nd grade, who I know full well does not have the ability to read these passages that he's having to read in his classroom and answer these questions subjectively while looking at the text. The answer is not there. It's not there. It's not a clear answer that he can find, and therefore he doesn't have that ability yet. So his grades are all of a sudden going from A's to where he's failing things.
Right.
And I help him with schoolwork. I help him with his homework every night. I make sure he does it all as he should. But so what are you going to do for these children that really are very bright children who are suddenly not being successful in the classroom?
Well, one of the first things that we're doing, and this is going to be new for Ocean Spring starting this summer, we're looking at having a reading institute. And it's going to be a 6-week intensive reading program, basically identifying those students who are not reading at or above grade level at the end of the year.
I mean, he reads nonfiction, he reads fiction. I mean, he's a strong reader, but he's not getting these questions now all of a sudden. He's never had this problem before.
And that's something that I would...
I have questions myself, sorry to interrupt you, but I didn't even know the answer. And I went to college, I have my master's. I mean, I'm not, slow. I'm able to think critically, and I did not know the answer.
Yes, ma'am. And again, that's going to be on one of those, I would meet with your teacher and talk to your teacher about what kind of remediation he or she is providing for your child to help build those skill levels. I can't speak specifically about that, but I would say start with your teacher and see what he or she is doing to help your child close some of those gaps that may enhance her ability to answer some of those higher level questions. And again, I know we could be here all night, guys. I do want to be mindful of your time and everybody else's time. We do appreciate you coming out tonight. We do hope to continue this conversation in the future. Thank you.
I told everyone, we don't have the money. We get all the news and said that Common Core, the reason 45 states took this stuff, so the government gave them a bunch of money. So why can't they take that money and give these children books?
But we do have textbooks in the
But
classroom.
then we're in the classroom.
Right, and I don't know if it's
what these kids are. When
Yes,
we get
ma'am.
home, we're pulling our hairs out, we're crying, we're having fits. Because we have no books. And how can we monitor what our children
Which
are reading
subject?
when there's no
I
textbook?
buy a used book on the internet. I've done it before. I go to Amazon.
Which
I find out
subject
the
area are you talking about?
But I did
Right,
because
right.
I wanted her to.
Yeah, I want to know what they're reading, but if they don't send no book home, how am I know what they're being
Can
taught?
I ask a question? Have you contacted your child's
Yes,
teacher?
sixth grade, they
And-
told us, we're going to send all the textbooks home. They told us that. We have a sixth grade meeting. I've yet to see a textbook.
Now, have you questioned your grandchild about where is the textbook?
He said they haven't got them. They said they don't have enough right now. They've got to give the other books. They're supposed to have a textbook at school and a textbook at home. And then I had a teacher tell me last year, we're pulling our hair out, nothing to go by. Wrote me a nasty note and told me that my child did not study, and I had me, two neighbors, all of them spent 3 hours.
Please understand that what you're saying right now, and I understand
Yes,
your
thank you.
concern
Yeah, I am
and your
frustrated.
frustration. I truly do. This is not a Common Core reason why they're not covering the textbooks. It truly is not.
I'm saying
we have
if all the
years
government
where
said they took it because they took Common Core because they're getting all this money from the government to take Common Core. If they're getting that money, why? It's been all over the news. I heard it.
They're doing it to make the kids.
I'm saying if they got this money, why aren't they using it?
And see, I know as a classroom teacher that I have had textbooks provided for me. We have textbook
I'm not saying you
adoption
don't.
years. I know, ma'am, but I'm just saying in the Ocean Springs School District. Now, there are some subject areas, for example, math, with the Envision Math in the lower levels. There is not a textbook that goes with Envision
My granddaughter
Math.
they use this little paper.
But there
and
are
if you can't figure
things
it out,
that they should be coming home with, just like when we previously taught Saxon math. There was a side A and a side B. Side A came home with the skill sets and the concepts that were taught in the class, and within that, then that side B, when they brought that home for homework, then they could refer back to side A. There wasn't a textbook that went with that program either.
why do they do that? Why do they put out a program that there's no books?
Well, with some of our math programs, there is not a textbook that goes with it until they get to a certain grade level. In our lower levels, some of the math programs have not had textbooks.
I know you're having trouble.
And I understand your frustration. I truly do. But all I can suggest is to continue to get in touch with your child's teacher. If there is a textbook that is supposed to be coming home, I've had students in the past, they're told to take their textbooks home. They stick them under the desk. It's a follow-up of where is the connection being lost.
She said, I have an old first grade.
Some of them have some.
Can you explain to me, I don't understand, less material but deeper.
Okay.
And use elementary math
sure
for
will.
me, would you
Okay.
please?
So let's say that a second grader previously had a unit on geometry, had a unit on probability, had a unit on fractions, had a unit on adding and subtracting, had a unit on decimals, had a unit on multiplication, division, had a unit on positives, well, not positives and negatives, that level, but many, many things. If you take this many things, and you have to teach, if you have 20 things, and you have to teach it in a year, 180 days, you got 9 days per topic. With a Common Core, they may have 6 topics. 6 goes into 180 30 times. They get to do 30 days on the same thing, and they can really teach it deeper. They can not just say, is this a fraction? How do you know? Is 2/3 the same thing as 4/6? How do you know? Well, let's do a little investigation. Come over here and let's do this exercise where we see if they are. Can you show me some examples with these blocks? Can you show me these examples? So that we're not just quick. We gotta go into fraction. We gotta get done with fraction. We gotta go into decimals. There's plenty of time to deeply look at a topic.
Okay. All right. So you're staying in the same. So how is that equal or more material than what was before? If it's, I don't understand why deeper is better.
Because if all I teach you is this level, if I teach a student in algebra, for example, if I taught them that x plus x is 2x, but I never have a chance to say, well, what's an apple plus an apple? Well, can you show me? Look, here's an algebra block, here's an x block and an x block. What did you get when you go, oh, 2x? But I'm done, because after I said 2x plus x is 2x, I have to go on. If I don't have time for you to figure it out, to look at it yourself and make it real to you, then you're probably not going to remember it. You may remember it for a quiz or a test, but you're never going to make that connection. And so it's not sticking in your brain because you haven't had to do it. I mean, we do this all the time as adults. There are things that we didn't really understand as children. Percentages. Somebody says, oh, the tax rate's this way, and that would mean what to me? Until it influences us as we experience it, it doesn't mean anything. Well, if we have more time to look at a topic, kids can have that experience. They can have the time that it takes to really make something real to them.
Well, if you have a really bright child and they don't need 30 days to go x plus x equals 2x.
That's true. But then you can also say, so if x plus x equals 2x, what would it mean if I had 4y squared plus 4y squared? How would that relate to this? And by the way, if that's true, what if I have an equation that's 2x plus y equals 3 and another one that's 4x plus y equals 3? How do those have anything to do with each other? So is there greater depth for even the smart kid? Of course there is. There's calculus. We haven't got to calculate. You know what I mean? There's always more math. There's always deeper. There's always, more understanding.
Okay.
So now we hope that all kids are getting to a level. The goal is for all kids to get to a level where they understand a concept and they can even own it. There's still lots more layers. We're not going to run out of layers of math or understanding.
So deeper is still the same amount of material. You said you went from maybe 20 things to 6 things, but really the deeper is the 6 through 20.
Correct.
But it's not written out, and maybe some students don't get 6 through 20, they only get the 1 through 6.
Maybe everybody's getting the 6, the basic 6. They're getting, 6 of those 20 things. The level that they get in those 6 things can vary from student to student. And so are students all going to still ever be at the same place? Of course not. Of course they're not. They're coming from different backgrounds. They're coming from different ability levels. Some are English language learners. Some have disabilities. Are they all going to be at the same place ever? I don't really think that is true. But will they all get a chance to own something in a way that they didn't before? That's the goal.
I read something about Tony Bennett, who was he was in at one time.
I love Tony Bennett. He wrote great stuff about education.
He's the guy who was he was superintendent in Indiana.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
I think so.
Okay.
Different Tony Bennett.
He was the superintendent. Wasn't the
superintendent of Indiana.
Okay.
He got caught cheating.
Oh, okay. Tony. Never mind. I don't know him.
He got caught cheating on the some scoring thing
I think
with
I've been at
with
the
charter
the
school.
Secretary of Education for the United States about 15 years ago.
Oh, okay,
That's a different guy. Okay, I'm
then
sorry.
he became, so he kind of didn't get reelected to that superintendent
Sounds
position
wise,
in
okay.
Indiana. And so Jeb Bush put him in a position of superintendent of Florida. After all of that,
I don't know why you do that,
and
but
I know.
okay.
And then he was on the board of Park
Okay.
to help develop the testing. He said that, and I think it was brought up tonight, well, I know it was brought up tonight, about the grade scale change. He said that if you are a Park school, you'll have to change your grading scale.
Go look on there and see look at the standards. The standards are what we teach. I don't know anything in there that talks about how you have to grade. I've never seen anything like that, and I can tell you.
Well, no, this is coming from Park. This is not the standards. This is coming from the assessments.
Right, but I can't understand how the assessments would have any say-so in how we grade. Where would that come from? I mean, do you know what I mean?
I don't know. It's something completely different foreign from anything I've ever known before.
Well, again, I mean, I would be glad to know that. I mean,
okay,
data
and then
mining,
maybe
when I read about going and that I started going, what is they're putting they're feeling kids' pulses to find. I was like, what in the heck are they talking about? So I wanted to go find out. I've got a stake in this. I've got children of my own. I've got a grandchild. And so I want what's best for kids. I stepped out of the classroom and I've spent a good bit of time helping the teacher who took my place because I love those kids. I want them to do well. I don't want to do something that's bad for kids. Now, I can tell you that as an educator with many years of experience, I've seen lots of states go to open classrooms, new math, old math. We've had, those changes are not new. Have there been states for many years that have done ungraded classrooms? We've done it for a while, changed it, yes. But as far as I know, there's no component of Common Core that says you have to change your grading scale. I would like to know
that you know of yet. I mean, who knows what Park is doing? I mean, we don't understand yet because they haven't even started the assessment.
Is the assessment?
Well, that's a lot because the assessment is. Now, I could be wrong.
Connection between how the assessment could make me change my grading scale.
I don't either. I mean, he's the lead guy of and soon after that, Florida pulled out.
If you find out about that, and they have not pulled out all the way. They have pulled out of Park's assessment. They've not pulled out of Common Core.
Correct.
So they're teaching the Common Core standards, but
I mean that they pulled out of Park soon after they found that came up, and I don't know why. I don't understand that, and I don't know if it had anything to do with it.
But if you find out about something, email me. I'd like to know that. I want to be well informed.
Okay. Go ahead and give me your email. I'll try to.
Did you get one of those handouts?
Yes.
Or the door?
Yes.
I think I'm on there.
Oh, good.
I said a great job.
Different,
Let's see if I'm on there, and if I'm not, I'll just write it down. Sure.
Hey,
We really
great job at just being
every
tacky.
single. We want kids. We want what's good for kids.
Oh, I believe it.
I don't see it on there.
But I have to tell you,